Hi, I'm gonna react to creepypasta. He makes scary stories. Some of them are not really scary.
When I was 10 years old, my best friend died. It's easy to read about things like that in the newspaper. Most people, of course, don't have any sort of special attachment to such tragedies. They see it and maybe, if they're feeling sympathetic that day, utter some sort of consolatory word to those in their general area. Maybe it'll pop up in conversation at lunch as some part of larger discussion. Regardless, the fact is that, save for the family and the few friends that such a child has had a chance to make in such short of time, no one else pays any more attention to it than the other news. Hell, it even usually takes a backseat to bigger things. But Kieran's death really shook me. We had been born 10 days apart. Our mothers had been friends through high school and college. We had lived less than a block apart, so naturally, from the very moment that we were able to leave the hospital, we were always together. Kieran and I attended the same preschool and kindergarten, and moved on into elementary school together as well. When holidays came around, we were fixtures in each other's celebrations. I would walk from my house and hang out with him, and his parents would even give me a Christmas present and vice versa. We were less friends and closer to brothers. I was an only child and he had a sister a few years younger than him. One Christmas, when we were 8 years old, our parents decided to get us a special gift. Kieran and I had taken a shine to pretending to be in the army, but not just as soldiers, but as special forces. We would skulk around about the neighborhood in all black, hiding behind trees or bushes, communicating with what we thought sounded like animal noises. More than once we were caught by our older neighbors, and they would usually just pretend they hadn't seen us. If contact was unavoidable, they would act as if they were supportive of our sneaky endeavors and welcome us in for refreshments. Kieran and I never passed up the chance to eat the sugary sweets offered to us as payment for our service to the country. So on Christmas, having taken special note of our interests, our parents pooled money and bought us a set of walkie-talkies. They weren't the kind that barely reached 10 feet. They were bona fide, long-range walkie-talkies, sleek, black, and even with different frequencies to talk on. Kieran and I were floored. No longer did we need to master the trill of local birds or chittering sounds of rabbits and squirrels. Now we could communicate like real spies, official and silent to the rest of the world. For the next 6 months, our secret charade continued and we became increasingly good at not being spotted. One of us would act as a scout, and the other would remain stationary. I always liked being the scout. There was something special about being the advance guard, moving out ahead of the protection that was being a part of the group and solidifying the safety of our plans. Eventually, we fell into this routine. Kieran would watch my back and I would dart as quietly and quickly as possible to a target location, all the while maintaining radio silence. Once there, I would hunker down and wait for him to call me.
Come in, patrol. Come in, patrol. Is it safe to come out yet? Over.
I would pull my walkie-talkie up close to my face and whisper in response.
Copy, Watchman. All is safe. Proceed whenever. Over.
A few moments would go by, my heart throbbing in my chest, wondering if he would be discovered. Always, though, he gave a response.
Copy that, patrol. Advancing over.
Kieran would come bolting out from his hiding spot to where I was, and we would repeat our actions over and over again. Our parents always told us how great we were at being spies, and honestly, we believed them. But even parental reinforcement can only keep a child's interest in something for so long. Eventually, we lost interest in the game, but we didn't stop using the walkie-talkies. We discovered that we could use them from our respective rooms and still manage to call each other, albeit with a little bit of interference here and there. I wish that we had never found out that they reached that far. I wish that we could have just remained spies, but that's not how it happened. We were 10 years old and we were convinced that we were practically adults already. We still saw each other almost every single day and we still made secret plans and spied on the neighbors, but it had all lost its luster. That's why one night when Kieran called me over the walkie-talkie and told me he wanted to sneak out, I told him that I would do it. We planned to meet up in the middle of our street at exactly 11:15, after our parents sent both of us to bed. We helped each other to stay awake, talking back and forth in hushed tones. When the red digital numbers of my alarm clock ticked to 11:15, I climbed out of bed, shut off the walkie-talkie, and tiptoed out of my room. Drawing off my past spy experience, I moved deftly through the darkness, descending the stairs without hardly making any noise at all. I reached the front door and unlocked it, easing it open slowly. The creak of the wood against the frame was thunder in the silence. But after it was open, I strained my ears and heard nothing. I eased the screen door open and stepped out into the front porch. That's when I saw Kieran across the street, making his way through the night, dropping down the embankment on the other side of the road invisibly, obscured by a parked car, and watched as he began his jog across the road. That's also when I saw the high beams of an oncoming truck flash in my peripherals as it hurtled towards him. The tires screeched, but the brake was too late. There was a thunk of something hard hitting something metal. The driver sat there for a moment, stunned, then panicked and took off. That's when I realized I was screaming. I don't remember the hospital at all, and I don't remember what happened when the doctor came out and told our parents the devastating news. I don't remember what happened when they caught the hit-and-run driver. All I remember next is the funeral. I remember going up to the casket and seeing him. Kieran. But he wasn't Kieran. Something about him looked fake, waxy even, and it appeared as though he were in nothing more than an unnaturally long sleep. My parents were crying, and his parents were crying, as they all looked into his coffin. That's when I asked them if they would bury his walkie-talkie with him so that I could talk to him, so that he would have someone to talk to if he ever woke up. I don't know if they thought it was sweet or if they did it because they thought in some way that it might help me cope, but they agreed. When Kieran was buried in the local cemetery, it was with a rosary wrapped around his hands and a walkie-talkie in his shirt pocket. For some time after that, I talked to Kieran as regularly as I could, even though I was pretty sure that the walkie-talkie couldn't reach that far. When I got a little older, I would ask my parents for rides to the cemetery, or I would bike ride there on my own, so that I could sit there and talk to him, tell him about my day, about school and life and how his little sister and parents are doing. But as I got older, as I got into high school, I became too busy and I distanced myself. I stopped visiting, and even though I kept the walkie-talkie, I never talked into it as if he were still alive. I had learned, gradually, that Dad wasn't being asleep. It was something far more sinister, and it was something that someone never came back from.
True.
I graduated high school this year, and that's what brought Kieran back to the forefront of my mind. 8 years he's been gone. I often wonder now if he and I would have gone to college together. If we would have remained good friends and maybe one day had families and kids of our own close together, had children that were as good of friends as we had been. It was those thoughts and questions that made me want to visit him again. Those and the realization that, as of next semester, I will be going to college halfway across the country and that I might not have the chance to visit him again for a long, long time.
What's so sad?
So today, I took the walkie-talkie, got in my car, and drove to the cemetery. I stood above his grave and talked to him for a while. When I couldn't think of anything else to say or do, I pulled the walkie-talkie out of my pocket and set it at the base of his gravestone as a last goodbye. I turned around and began to walk towards my car, and that's when I heard it. Faintly, muddled, and riddled by static.
Come in, Patrol. Come in, Patrol.